In the Shimane province of Japan, there is a smelter that is lit for only one night each year, where steel is made in the same way it was 1,300 years ago.
That's not actually the case. Some of the core methods, but they're using modern day fans instead of foot, bellows. And it's not a traditional tatara that needs to be broken apart, all right, made out of clay, which could affect how much heat gets trapped in the furnace. And the iron ore that they're using probably was sifted with magnets to separate the iron ore sand from other impurities. These are all things that are not mentioned in the documentary, but also when the people who are making the katana, or the metal in this case, never really mention. Like, again, the fact that they're using iron ore sand that was most likely sourced through modern methods is never mentioned, okay? And they praise the tamahagane that is made out of these modern day smelters as being very pure. This tamahagane is pure.
I have a piece of bloomery or tamahagane from Japan, and this particular piece contains virtually no slag, so it is fairly clean.
And oftentimes they are saying it with the direct implication that tamahagane is therefore very pure, high quality, high carbon steel, reflecting that the traditional period tamahagane was of similar quality, when no, it was not. Tamahagane was pure high quality steel right out of the furnace. You wouldn't need to fold it to remove those impurities. Veritasium does say that there are impurities in, and there are a couple of good acknowledgements that don't usually get mentioned, so I'm grateful for that. But it's kind of statements like this that is like, and it's the omission of certain facts that also imply other things. Now, again, they don't say that tamahagane is necessarily pure here. He does mention that the iron ore sand is pure. We'll get to that. But there are other documentaries and people who promote, katana that are making them usually say tamahagane is particularly pure, when it's because it was made with modern methods in the process. This is not a 100% traditional way of smelting tamahagane and resulting in the iron ore bloom that they have. And by the way, the method that they're doing here is bloomery smelting. This is very common, known throughout many cultures throughout history. It's one of the first ways we smelted iron was with a bloomery furnace. The tatara is just a very big bloomery furnace. That's about the main primary difference. And it has all the same limitations that bloomery smelting has, that other cultures face. And Veritasium mentions what some of those are in the video, like it doesn't fully liquefy the iron. There are other implications that he doesn't mention that results in. And it does, so when the tatara is presented, it is often presented as this particularly special, highly advanced, refined way of producing high carbon steel, when it was actually a very common way. It's not that special.
So where did they get the raw ingredients? As the mountains are weathered, these iron oxides are broken apart and washed downstream. Eventually, they become part of the sand. The Japanese noticed that because iron oxides are denser than other minerals in the sand, they accumulate in places where the river changes direction or speed. The heavier iron sinks to the bottom and the lighter material is washed away.
So then Veritasium goes on to explain that they collected iron ores a lot from the rivers. Doesn't really mention that one of the other places where a lot of this iron ore sand gets deposited on is on beaches. This can be a bit misleading because there is an interesting benefit that you get when you mine or collect iron ore sand along rivers, where there can be this type of sifting process which results in sometimes, more pure iron ore. When I say pure, there's still a lot of impurities in it. And then there's the fact that if you collect it on beaches, you don't have that sifting method, and then there are a lot of impurities. And so the implication is that because he doesn't mention other areas in which this iron ore was sourced, there's an implication that most iron ore sourced in Japan just is of a higher, more pure state than other areas in which no, that actually isn't the case. There are instances where this iron ore sand, setetsu in Japanese, but that it's black iron oxide, okay? Or also known as magnetite. That's iron ore sand that we're talking about here, it's nothing special. It's not like this unique iron ore sand that is only found in Japan. It's iron ore that can make, functional good swords depending on your smelting technology and other ways in which it's collected.
They deliberately created diversions in the river to increase the concentration of iron.
What you do is you dam off a section of river and then you drag sand into it. Because iron is heavier than the other parts of the sand, it is the thing that gets left behind and everything else gets washed downstream.
With this method, you can get iron sands with 80% iron oxides by weight. That's more concentrated than high-quality iron ore.
The issue here is that, yes, you can get iron ore to this level of purity using this method, but that's not guaranteed. There are many instances of people collecting iron ore this way which still have a higher percentage of impurities than the most optimal outcomes which you can achieve, but the main question is how common that is. Is it a regular? Is it a standard? When more commonly iron ore collected this way, even though it can result in more pure iron ore, not all the time, nor was this the only way in which iron ore sand was collected. Not all iron ore sourced in Japan was of that quality, and it also has many impurities in it. Like if you just to smelt that iron ore as is and not trying to remove impurities, you're going to result in some pretty crappy steel. You definitely need a method to get rid of them all, and the smelting method that the Japanese did with the Tatara, more specifically, does not get rid of nearly all of those impurities.
So with the iron sand, it is mixed together with water because if you...
Alright, so this iron sand here is either going to be one of two states. It was either collected in a very traditional way, alright, which means there's going to be a lot of impurities in it, alright? Or it was had some refining or sifting done. And one of the real easy methods with iron ore sand to just try to pull out the iron and leave a lot of the other silicates and junk is with magnets. Okay, you could do it with simple magnets in a plastic bag where you put the iron and then you pull it out of it and it just falls down. Electromagnets is done as well. And I highly suspect this iron ore sand has been sifted in some measure, okay? Usually methods that were nowhere near available. Yes, they could find magnets, but it wasn't a regular thing done in medieval Japan, okay? And even then, there are a lot of other issues with iron ore that you need to deal with. Sulfur and phosphorus are two big issues that it doesn't seem the Japanese did. And so what you notice here with the iron ore, they don't mention it, but I've heard no indication of them pre-baking the iron ore. And so one of the ways that you get rid of sulfur is pre-baking the iron ore. And there are other cultures where in their smelting kind of areas where, like, all right, there's a big smelter here, we find what are called baking pits, these round holes in the ground where they would just chuck the iron in a big fire and just pre-bake it, okay? That gets rid of all moisture as well, which is helpful, but it also burns off sulfur, and that helps prep the iron to result in much higher quality at the end. Now, Veritasium, they do mention that one of the issues of the steel that comes out of the Tatara is that it has sulfur still in because they don't pre-bake it, okay? And then if it hasn't been sifted, with either magnets or even you can even kind of pan, gold pan way to brush off lighter material, you're not going to get rid of everything by doing that, and it's a very lengthy process. It's going to have a lot of impurities in it. But again, if they're claiming that the Tamahagane is nearly pure, as it comes out of the Tatara. The only way that results is if they sifted the iron ore before it goes in, okay? Because the Tatara's bloomery furnace, it does not fully liquefy the iron, and therefore the non-metallic inclusions do not diffuse out of, they get trapped in that kind of... it's a mass. It's not fully liquid, but it's this kind of somewhat spongy, partially liquid, almost like molasses or honey, right? It gets kind of that consistency, right? But that's not enough for the non-metallic inclusions to just rise to the surface. It's only when you fully liquefy it, right? Then those rise to the surface. A lot of the surface imperfections that are not already kind of ingrained and diffused into the iron will drip to the bottom, which Veritasium mentions, but a lot of it gets trapped in the steel itself.
To achieve the high temperatures required to make steel, you need a strong, steady supply of oxygen. For hundreds of years, this was provided by huge foot-operated bellows. It would have taken an around-the-clock, full-body effort by many men to maintain the furnace's temperature.
This part is really important because the temperature of the furnace is crucial in the quality of steel at the end. More of the slag, especially the surface slag that's not necessarily ingrained but part of it, right, has higher chances of being melted away and can drip out if you get higher temperatures. And the higher temperature that you can get the iron ore, the higher chances that the inclusions that are diffused in it can actually either rise to the surface because there's liquefaction and other things. So this is really important. The higher temperature, the better. When you're trying to blow those bellows manually by foot or hand, all right, people get tired and they might lag, and the temperature then in the furnace will lower. And guaranteed that was a common issue that they faced historically with any type of, bloomery furnace. And as a result, many steel, much type of steel, much like the Tamahagane that comes out, can result in having far greater inclusions and being, less pure steel, right? As a result, and many katana would still have been made out. It's still usable, it's steel, right? And many katana were made out of that, resulting in far less quality katana historically, okay? And so by using a modern method, blowers, right? Automatic blowers, they guarantee a higher temperature than what they would be able to maintain manually more often. And they might even be able to reach a higher temperature than they could just manually, especially if they're pumping huge amounts of air in that. They might be able to get the temperature so high that results in, again, much higher quality Tamahagane from this method using modern technology, right, than what it was historically. But so often, the steel that comes out of this process, they hold up the Tamahagane, they represent as being equivalent to the historical Tamahagane. And they say Tamahagane is great quality pure steel. When this is night and day. This is nowhere close, okay, to what much traditional Tamahagane would have been like. As a result, this is not 100% traditional method of making it. They're using modern cheats and shortcuts to ensure higher quality, and then oftentimes that higher quality is represented as being the quality of the historical sword, which is just flat out incorrect. Thanks for visiting the Shadlands, the place to find quick and easy to watch sword-related content. This video was a supercut or clip from a larger Shadiversity video. If you'd like to see the full-length video, please click on the provided links, and I hope to see you in the future.